Hello, I'm Denton Davidson, senior editor for Gold Derby, here with Emmy nominee and two-time Screen Actors Guild Award winner Chrissy Metz from NBC's This Is Us. Chrissy, you've wrapped filming, all of this is over, and you're sort of in this public farewell phase now and reflecting back. So I just want to, when you look back at it and think, I know this is sort of a big question, but how has This Is Us changed your life?
I'm already getting teary thinking about it. How has it changed my life in every single way? As everybody knows my story, I was basically broke. And I just wanted to act and I wanted to tell stories, and I was desperate. I mean, I had like a handful of auditions in 12 years that I lived in LA. And when my friend even asked about auditioning for the show, I was like, if you can get me the audition, of course I'll go. And then to actually go through the testing process and booking the show, and then having the show and its content reach people in ways that most television shows don't. And of course, I attribute that to the incredible Dan Fogelman and the writers. But, having a woman who looks like me on a network television show was groundbreaking. And it's so groundbreaking that now when we watch 6 years later, we see women who are of varying sizes and men who are just getting to tell their story, and it has nothing to do with their weight. And so to be a part of such a transition into seeing real people on television was so exciting. But also, of course, it's provided me opportunities, and I'm able to actually go and visit my family in Florida, as opposed to like just calling them on Christmas. I can actually be there with them. So from obviously the way that it's changed the narrative of my life and what I can talk to people about, and how honest and real they are when I'm, crying in bathrooms with strangers. Seriously, it happens so often. I can't even tell you. And I think that goes for everybody on the show, that no matter what character you're playing, anybody at any time can relate to it. Wow. Obviously we touch on paternity, weight, social injustices, miscarriage. I mean, every single thing. And there's not much that we haven't covered. And so it's changed me as a person. It's changed me as a daughter, as a sister, as a girlfriend, in every single way. It's hard. I mean, there would be nobody attached to the show that hasn't been changed incredibly by that show and by what we were able to do every week. So in every single way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's also been such a critical success. I mean, the acting has had so many accolades. You yourself, as I stated earlier, Emmy nomination. The cast winning that cast ensemble at the Screen Actors Guild Awards was so much fun to watch. What is that like to be on those red carpets and just be a part of that, especially after all of these years of struggle that you spoke of? Yeah. Suddenly you're on a red carpet. Who are you seeing on these red carpets that you're like, oh my God, how am I seeing them?
Everybody and anyone that like I've revered for years, Sam Rockwell and Allison Janney and, Octavia Spencer, who I just love. And I mean, everybody and anyone that you've watched growing up, or you were like, oh my gosh, I wish I could, act as well as they do. And then to be on the carpet is such and I remember our first Golden Globes was like, oh, wow. Like, what is this? It really sort of takes time to acclimate to what it all is. And it's it's so funny, like the press and everything becomes more the work, and the acting is like the fun stuff, because you really get to sink your teeth into the acting. And then you're like, oh, there's all these, the ways in which our industry works and all that. And it's funny because, if you're newer, people might want to talk to you or might not, and they're, of course, they're looking to see who the next person is that might be bigger than you, that, they need to talk to. And you're like, okay, it's coming in 3, 2, 1. Thanks so much, Chrissy. And it's just funny because like it really, acts of humility are really important, I think, just in life. And, we get to do something that not many people get to do. I mean, I hope we inspire people to pursue that dream if that's what they want to do, is, you know, act and tell stories. But it's it's really something cool and special. We get to dress up and talk about it, but it's really, you have to remove your ego when it comes to that kind of stuff. I think you have to remove your ego just in life. If you want to evolve, you want to suppress the ego if it's not helping you. So yeah, all that's been really fun, but also it's cool to see everybody that you're watching on, you know, TV or in film, like right next to you, and you're like, oh wow, like I'm walking the carpet with these people, and like people want to talk to me about the work I'm doing. And you know, when you're sitting on the couch watching these people and then now you're next to them, it's really wild. It's really cool. Yeah.
So we knew this was coming because of flash forwards, but you know, Toby and Kate obviously go through their divorce in this final season, which crushing fans of the show, but it was also a really interesting story arc, and it allowed us to see them grow. You know, what was your reaction to the story arc when you saw the script for this final season? And you know, what were some of those scenes like? I thought the scenes between you and Chris were really great.
Thank you. Well, when I read it, I knew, I mean, I trust Dan and I trust the writers, and I knew that this was an important part of a relationship to tell. And obviously Beth and Randall are great and they've been solid forever, and you know that they weren't going to be breaking up. Toby and Kate, sort of, if you go back into the pilot, I mean, she told him, you know, I don't know if I'm ready for a relationship. And he sort of kind of was so charming and funny. And she was like, okay, you know. And so what you discover through this entire 6-year journey is that Kate is a woman who always puts everybody else first, even in her own choices of if she's ready to date, or you know, the shame and guilt she had around her father's passing, and how she literally has held on to that her entire life. And so to find a man who's as wonderful as Toby, even though it wasn't perfect, it was really cool to see like, oh, okay, this is how the transition of the relationship is going to go. And from, you know, obviously the proposal to having children, and one being visually impaired, and then of course adopted. It was really, it's important stuff that we don't talk about and we don't really know how to talk about. And of course, even her miscarriage. And so for them to have really traversed so much, I mean, time and space in their relationship, and then to know that they weren't going to ultimately end up together. I just think it's important. We don't always get to see how a relationship unravels. It's usually, I hate that person and they're a jerk, and I'm so glad we're getting divorced. Whereas with Kate and Toby, it's like, wow, they love each other, but they know that they're growing apart. And how do we do this with dignity and with love and with grace? And it doesn't come without, of course, the truth bombs that come from Toby not telling her the truth, that she had, you know, he had an offer for a job that she never even knew about, and to find out through his coworkers, you know, after he plans this elaborate San Francisco weekend, and then she's like, I just want it to be you and me, you know, how it used to be. And just all of that leading up to it, I mean, it was really emotionally challenging, because not only am I starting this relationship with Chris Gere, who plays Philip, I'm having to say goodbye to Chris Sullivan, but also the show, and also divorcing with children and how to co-parent. But without, I think it's really important that they both said exactly what they needed to say. And when I had a chance to co-write 9, the episode that Mandy directed, it was like, I really wanted this to be honest and sincere in what a real conversation would be like, or when somebody goes toe to toe with each other and neither one are right or wrong, but their perception is their reality. It's what they're feeling and experiencing. And you have to communicate that. And I think so many times we don't do that. So they were able to grow. And I mean, obviously it didn't come without a lot of bumps in the road, but that's how you get on the other side of something. And the only way to go is through it. And the way that it was written, and doing those scenes, you know, with Chris that were really emotionally draining and difficult. And that very big scene in San Francisco, it was like, I know how necessary this is for relationships and for people to see their stories depicted on screen, or also to say, oh, I can be as brave as Kate and confront him. I don't always have to swallow, my emotions or eat them or, push them aside. And same thing with Toby. He was also right. Like he was doing everything he thought was correct. And the bittersweet, beautiful part about relationships is whoever you're with, hopefully they help you to evolve. So you become the next better person for the next person. And I feel like the show did that so beautifully. And I was so grateful to share very challenging moments with Chris, but I trusted him, because we spent 5 years together and we were like, let's go for it. So it was really wonderful, but also very challenging.
What was it like to be on that writing side? How did you get roped into that? And what about the writing did you enjoy? Do you want to do more of that? And
Definitely want to write more. I mean, I've been writing music and poetry for a while, but I've always wanted to tell stories. But it's not hard. I mean, it's not easy. It's so hard, and it not for the faint of heart. Like you really have to set your ego aside, and it's a collective, consciousness that sits in a writer's room, and someone's like, actually, I think that's better than that, or maybe we should change that. And you have to understand that so many things that you want to bring to the table will fall away, and you can't be precious about it because it's really about the greater good for the show or the character or the story. And so it was really cool. David Windsor and Casey Johnson, who I got to write with, who I love, were so open and encouraging and supportive. They were like, Chrissy, you're good. And I'm like, stop. I don't know. I'm scared. And they're like, no, you need to give yourself more credit. And it was weird, saying my own words and my own lines. I didn't love that. I felt like I was so close to the dialogue that I was like, oh, I don't know about this. I think I'm too close to it. It feels weird. Like, and I second guessed as an actor if those were the right words as the writer. And it was very, I was like, okay.
That's interesting because you don't feel that way about singing, right? Like you love singing your own words, but it's hard to act your own words.
Yeah, right. And so I don't know if it was the day, it was the moment, it was the scene, it was the uncomfortability. Because that's the thing is, as an actor, whatever you're feeling that day, you're bringing to the set. As much as you're trying to, extract whatever happened 5 minutes before they say action, you bring it to the set, so you have to use it. So it might have been a lot of that, but also I just felt like exposed because I want to be validated as a writer, and I want people to think that like it wasn't just like, oh yeah, cute, so I think maybe I was in my head about that I just want people to think I did a great job. And so then I started second guess myself, but I do that all the time. And it also was uncharted territory, and I hadn't experienced that before, so I didn't know what to expect. And I try to have no expectations in life generally, but I would love to do more of it. I really enjoyed it. I have never respected writers and creators more in my life than being so in it for that particular episode. It was really, really special.
There's a scene that, right at the end, you get to the top of that hill. It sounds kind of like what you just described. Like you get to the top of that hill and you're like, I can do this.
Yeah.
Have there been a lot of those moments for you, like not from this show or just life, or, what's that top of the hill moment for you?
Oh gosh. I feel like I have them a lot, and I'm so grateful because as uncomfortable as I am about suiting up and showing up for myself, like even if I go to work, if it's a new job or if it was This Is Us, I'm always like, can I do this? Like, I don't know. And I guess it's good to question yourself because you do push yourself and you try to obviously grow and use muscles you haven't used before. But so much of what we do is picked apart, like it could be an incredible performance, but somebody's going to say something. And so you really have to like not think about those things. And I think so much of this journey of me playing Kate has afforded me the ability to trust myself. And I think that's what confidence really is just trusting yourself. And so I'm trusting that I'm doing the work, that I'm showing up for myself, even if it's uncomfortable, even if I think somebody's going to say something. You know, social media is beautiful in many ways, but it's also very divisive, and people can be really hateful. And every day I'm like, do I choose to read the comments that potentially could be hurtful, or do I just do the work and hope I'm progressing and I feel good about what I do? And if I don't, let me fix it. So every day I feel like I can climb a hill and like get to the top and say, okay, I made it through another day without like falling apart because somebody on the internet said something horrible, or that I'm pursuing to write music and continuing to do what I always have wanted to do, or writing, or just putting my hat in the ring when it comes to executive producing, or even in another project. It's like, we can really get paralyzed in the fear and we never do something. And that's the one song I don't want to sing, is the shoulda, coulda, woulda song. And I hope I inspire other people to feel the same way, because there's so many things we don't try because we're like, oh, we're afraid of failure, or we don't want to know the truth. Like maybe we don't actually really love it, but we are keeping this fantasy alive. I mean, we do that with, people we're dating, or the idea of someone, or the idea of what the relationship could be, and not really what it is. And so I feel like if you're alive in this time and space, like everybody's making it to the top of the hill, because every day can be really difficult, especially people who are dealing with just unfathomable social injustices and racism. And so in my small little way in the show, and Kate like finally coming to terms and being the woman that she's always wanted to be and sticking up for herself. It's like, I feel like I do that every day, and I hope everybody feels that they do that every day, because just to get through a day sometimes it's not easy, Yeah.
And you're pushing forward with music now, correct?
Yeah.
So this is like an old story about Diane Warren now. It's a little expired, but I need answers.
Sure.
Because my colleague Joyce interviewed her, and when she wrote the song for Breakthrough, which you sang at the Oscars, so that was I loved that. But she admitted, she's like, oh, another actress who wants to sing. And she goes, I went into the studio, and she said, when Chrissy got there, I left because I didn't want her to get there and then lie to her about her being good.
Yeah.
And Joyce was like, did she know that? And she was like, I don't know if she knows that.
I knew it.
And I was going to ask you, like, did you know it? And what were you thinking in that moment? Like, oh my God, Diane Warren. And then she said she came back and heard it, and she was like, I was blown away. So did you know going in that moment, like, I'm about to bring it? Like,
no, I never think I'm gonna bring it. Never.
Oh
man. I'm like, I don't even know where it's at to be brought. I'm not sure yet, because like I still feel very new in like all of this, and I really have insecurities when it comes to performing, and especially music, because it is one of my most loved things in the whole wide world. And so and it feels very raw. Like I feel very raw. It's like a stand-up comic, like it's just you and the microphone. At least as a singer, you typically have an instrument behind you, but you're very exposed, and especially with your voice, like that's what we have to communicate is our voice. So I remember her, she was like, listen, I'm going to go. And I was like, oh, I know why she's going to go. Because she thinks that I'm going to be terrible, and she's not going to know how to like be honest with me. But here's the thing about D-Dubs, like Diane can be very honest and very direct. So I was like, listen, at least I'm going to know how she feels. Like I'd rather somebody say you're shit than just blow smoke. So Kyle, her engineer, was so kind and sweet. And I was like, listen, I have not recorded a lot, and I've never recorded a Diane Warren song. And they're like, oh, no, we're just going to play around and see what it sounds like. It's just going to be like a little test. And I was like, cool. And she's like, so I'll be back. And I was like, Chrissy, are you going to rise to the occasion and just like show up for yourself right now? Because I wanted to crumble and think, who do you think you are? And Devon Franklin, who was the producer of Breakthrough, he's the one that suggested me to Diane. And I was like, I have to show up for Devon. He went to bat for me. Like I had to at least try to sing the song, because I would beat myself up all the way home if I was like, Chrissy, damn it, you know you can sing that song. You know, like you can do it. And it might not be what she wanted, but you do it in your way. And I think that for me is always the comparing and despairing. I'm like, I'm not going to sound like Yeva Smith. I'm not going to sound like Mandy Moore. I'm not going to. And I'm like, oh, because I'm not them. Yeah. I'm not supposed to sound like Lady Gaga because I'm not Lady Gaga, you know? So I have to really kind of talk myself through it all. But yeah, when she came back and she was like, oh, you actually can sing. I was like, oh, thank goodness, because, you know, we all want to be validated. Like we all do all the things we do because we want to be liked and loved. And I'm no different. So, you know, it was quite an experience, and I'm so grateful for it because, oh my goodness, but it was very scary.
Well, Chrissy, congratulations on, you know, This Is Us, the entire journey, like all 6 seasons. It's such a beloved show and TV history, and we'll look forward to your music, your next film and television project, and best of luck at the Emmys this year. Fingers crossed. I mean, all deserve it. The whole cast. Come on.
Fingers, toes, eyes crossed. Come on. Like last
writers,
season,
actors, producers,
writers, directors, actors, Dan Fogelman. Yes. I just, you know, we're doing something that nobody's ever done before, and I'm so grateful for it. But it's nice to be in the conversation. So thank you. Thank you for chit-chatting with me.
Well, thanks for speaking with Gold Derby. It was great to chat with you, Chrissy.
You too. Take care.